Have you ever felt the weight of understanding something so deeply, only to realize that most others simply don't, or worse, don't want to? It's a subtle, often unspoken loneliness that comes with seeing patterns, recognizing uncomfortable truths, or grasping complexities that seem invisible to the crowd. This isn't just about being smart. It's about a kind of intellectual superiority that creates a gap, not a connection. But why does this happen? Why does a sharper mind so often lead to deep isolation, rather than fitting in or being admired? Is it merely a personal failing? Or is there a fundamental, almost tragic truth built into the very nature of profound intellect? Nietzsche, the radical philosopher of self-overcoming, didn't just observe this phenomenon. He brutally showed the dark, uncomfortable truth hidden beneath the surface of intellectual superiority, revealing why the burden of sight can often be heavier than the comfort of blindness. Maybe you've felt it when you shared a unique idea, only to be met with blank stares or even quick defensiveness. Or perhaps you've noticed how easily people dismiss insights they don't immediately grasp, preferring simple answers over complex truths. It's as if seeing too much, or too clearly, can sometimes make you an outsider. This isn't a problem unique to a few individuals. It's a deep-seated human reaction. A pattern in society that has played out through history, quietly shaping our interactions. We often praise intelligence, but we also secretly resent it, especially when it challenges our comfortable ways of thinking or reveals inconvenient realities. In this video, we're going to dive deep into Nietzsche's challenging ideas. We'll explore his surprising view on why true intellectual insight often creates distance and even conflict instead of respect. Stay with me, because what we uncover will not only explain why this happens, but also shed light on some uncomfortable truths about human nature itself. By the end of this journey, you'll see intellectual superiority not just as a gift, but as a complex, often lonely path. You'll understand the hidden forces at play when a mind truly sees beyond the ordinary. And why, for Nietzsche, this deeper vision often came with a heavy, isolating cost. This isn't just about understanding a philosopher. It's about understanding a powerful part of human experience that is rarely spoken about. A dark truth about what it truly means to know. To truly grasp Nietzsche's perspective on intellectual superiority and its isolating nature, we must first understand a main struggle he observed in human nature. He saw a constant push and pull between two basic human urges, what we might call the will to truth and the will to comfort. The will to truth is that deep desire to know, to uncover, to see things as they really are, no matter how harsh or inconvenient. It's what drives a scientist to spend years on a theory, a philosopher to question basic beliefs, or even just you, in a quiet moment, to reflect honestly on a difficult situation. This will push us to dig deeper, to face reality, and to challenge what we assume. But for most people, Nietzsche argued, this will to truth often clashes with a far more dominant force, the will to comfort. Or even, as he sometimes put it, the will to illusion. Think about it. Our minds are constantly trying to make sense of the world in a way that feels safe, steady, and predictable. We like simple answers. We prefer stories that make us feel good about ourselves and our place in the world. We build entire belief systems, cultures, and even personal identities on certain truths we hold dear, not because they are absolutely true, but because they are comfortable. Imagine for a moment someone who has built their entire life around a certain belief. Say that hard work always leads to success, or that every bad event has a clear, understandable cause. This belief gives them comfort, direction, and a sense of fairness in the world. Now, imagine you, with your sharper insight, you see the exceptions, the systemic unfairness, the randomness of life that sometimes makes hard work fail, or innocent people suffer. When you try to share this deeper, more complex truth, what happens? Often you're met with resistance. It's not that people are stupid, it's that your insight threatens their comfortable world. It asks them to break down a part of their mental fortress. They don't want to see the cracks in their foundations. For them, the comfort of their established belief is far more valuable than the painful clarity of your truth. This is why you might offer a nuanced perspective, only to have it rejected out of hand, or even worse, misunderstood entirely. It's not just a difference of opinion, it's a clash of basic urges. You are driven by the search for unfiltered reality, while others are driven by the need for a soothing, digestible version of reality. Nietzsche understood that the individual who truly seeks the will to truth, who insists on seeing reality stripped bare, will inevitably find themselves at odds with the majority. This brings us to another of Nietzsche's powerful ideas, the herd mentality. Nietzsche observed that human beings, for the most part, thrive in groups. There's comfort, safety, and a sense of belonging in being part of a herd. The herd values conformity, shared values, and common ways of thinking. It creates rules, traditions, and moral codes that help maintain order and predictability. These aren't necessarily bad things, no. They allow society to function. But for Nietzsche, the herd also tends to suppress individuality, especially when that individuality threatens the shared consensus. Intellectual superiority, by its very nature, is a profound form of individuality. A mind that sees deeper, questions more thoroughly, and understands complexities others might miss, naturally stands apart from the common way of thinking. It doesn't easily fit into the neat boxes the herd creates. If the herd thrives on simple answers and comforting illusions, well, the intellectually superior mind is constantly peering behind the curtain, exposing the mechanisms, the unspoken assumptions, and the convenient fictions. Think of it like this. Imagine everyone in a room agrees the sky is purple. They've always been told it's purple, and it's a comforting belief that unites them. You, however, see that it's clearly blue. When you point this out, you're not just disagreeing with a fact, you're challenging the very foundation of their shared reality. The herd might see you, not as a truth teller, but as a disruptor, an oddity, or even a threat. This leads us to Nietzsche's concept of resentment, a deep, hidden bitterness that the weak or the many feel towards those who are superior, stronger, or simply different. It's not an open, angry confrontation, but a quiet, often unconscious bitterness that shows up as dismissal, judgment, or exclusion. If your insight makes others feel small, or makes their own understanding seem inadequate, their natural response might be to push you away, to label you as arrogant, or to simply ignore your ideas. This isn't just a personal failing on their part, it's a deep-seated human reaction to being challenged by something they can't, or won't, grasp. Consider the historical figures we now admire, but who, in their own time, were ostracized or persecuted for their intellectual superiority. Socrates was put to death for corrupting the youth by teaching them to question. Galileo faced the Inquisition for proving the earth revolved around the sun, an idea that directly challenged the comforting, human-centered view of the universe held by the powerful church. These individuals weren't just smarter, they were dangerous, because their insights shattered comforting illusions and threatened the established order of the herd. And this isn't just about historical figures, no. You might see a smaller version of this play out in your own life, when your clarity makes others uncomfortable, and they react with subtle forms of resentment or dismissal. So if intellectual superiority naturally leads to conflict with the herd, what does it mean for the individual who possesses such a mind? This brings us to what Nietzsche called the burden of sight, the profound solitude and misunderstanding that often comes with deep intellectual insight. The gap we spoke about in the introduction isn't just created by the herd's reaction. It's also a fundamental consequence of the intellectually superior person's internal world. If you see more layers, more patterns, more implications in a situation than others, well, then the very fabric of your reality is different from theirs. And when you try to share your insights, you might find that you have to simplify them so much that they lose their true meaning. Or that others simply lack the way of thinking to even begin to grasp what you're saying. Imagine trying to explain quantum physics to someone who only understands basic arithmetic. You can simplify, you can use metaphors. But the core complexity, the true nature of what you see, it just remains beyond their grasp. This isn't a judgment, by the way. It's simply a reality of differing levels of understanding. And the result? A profound loneliness. You see the world in a certain way. You have insights that feel crucial. Yet, you struggle to find others who can genuinely meet you at that level, who can truly understand the nuances and implications of what you're experiencing. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation carefully explaining a complex idea, only to see blank stares or polite nods, followed by a quick change of subject? Or perhaps you felt the need to censor yourself, to hold back your deeper thoughts, because you know they would only lead to confusion or discomfort for others. This act of self-editing, of constantly watering down your true thoughts to fit a more digestible mold, that's a heavy burden. It means you are rarely, if ever, truly seen or understood in your intellectual depth. You become isolated, not necessarily because you choose to be, but because the very nature of your mind places you in a world that others simply cannot fully inhabit. Now, this isolation isn't merely a social problem, it shapes one's very existence. Nietzsche recognized that the deepest truths are often uncomfortable, even painful. The intellectually superior mind is constantly engaging with these truths, breaking down illusions, and confronting the harsh realities of existence. This journey, by the way, is often a solitary one, because few are truly willing to take it with you. Others, well, they prefer the comforting lies, the convenient fictions, and the shallow understandings that shield them from the more unsettling aspects of life. The burden of sight, then, is seeing too much, too clearly, and realizing that this clarity makes you a stranger in a world built on pleasant fictions. This burden of sight brings us to another critical aspect of Nietzsche's philosophy: the inherent danger of the intellectual. For Nietzsche, many of the structures, beliefs, and moral codes that underpin society are built on what he'd call comforting fictions or life-affirming lies. These aren't necessarily malicious untruths, but rather simplified stories, shared agreements, and cultural norms that make life more manageable, more predictable, and less terrifying for the majority. They provide a sense of order and meaning, even if that meaning is ultimately self-created or inherited. The problem, from Nietzsche's perspective, is that the intellectually superior mind, by its very nature, is equipped to see through these fictions. It has a powerful drive to uncover the deeper, often uncomfortable truths behind them. This isn't about being cynical or negative, it's about a relentless pursuit of clarity. When such a mind looks at a deeply held moral value, it doesn't just accept it, it asks, where did this value come from? What purpose does it serve? Who benefits from it? And at whose expense? When it looks at a societal institution, it probes its underlying assumptions, its unspoken rules, and its often unintended consequences. This unmasking process is profoundly unsettling. Imagine someone confidently explaining how a magic trick works to an audience that prefers to believe in real magic. The magician and the audience would likely resent this person because they're destroying a beautiful illusion. In the same way, when an intellectually superior mind reveals the constructed nature of a comforting belief system, it's perceived as dangerous by the herd. Why? Because it threatens their sense of reality, their moral certainty, and the very foundations of their shared world. Nietzsche didn't sugarcoat this. He recognized that for society to function, a certain level of comfortable illusion is necessary. But for the rare individual, the one who possesses intellectual superiority, the drive to dismantle these illusions is irresistible, even if it comes at the cost of social acceptance and personal peace. This reveals a profound and often tragic truth. The ability to see things as they truly are can make you an enemy of the very comfort and consensus that most people cherish. This brings us to a crucial point about the intellectually superior mind: its unique capacity for what Nietzsche called the reevaluation of all values. Most people, they inherit their values, their ideas of what's good, bad, right, or wrong from their culture, their family, their religion, or their society. These values are often deeply ingrained, accepted without question, and they form the bedrock of their moral compass. They provide a comfortable framework for living. However, the intellectually superior mind, driven by that powerful will to truth, isn't content to simply inherit these values. It doesn't just accept what is given. Instead, it scrutinizes them. It asks profound and often unsettling questions. Are these values truly beneficial? Do they promote strength and flourishing, or do they inadvertently promote weakness and conformity? Who created these values and why? Are they universal truths or merely human constructions that serve a particular purpose? This process of re-evaluation is incredibly isolating. To truly question and potentially dismantle the shared values of your society is to stand alone on a cliff. You're no longer bound by the same moral rules as everyone else. You see the randomness, the historical reasons, and the often hidden motives behind what others consider absolute truths. This isn't about being immoral in the traditional sense. It's about having the courage to look beyond what's simply given and ask, why? And at what cost? Imagine a society that values compassion above all else, even if it means sacrificing strength or self-interest. A superior mind, well, it might question this very value, asking if such widespread, unexamined compassion could actually lead to a weakening of the individual, or even society as a whole. This kind of questioning, however valid, will often be met with horror and condemnation. People will misunderstand your inquiry as an attack on goodness itself, rather than a deeper search for a more robust and life-affirming set of values. You'll be perceived as cold, dangerous, or even evil, simply because you dare to think beyond the boundaries of accepted morality. This radical questioning, well, it creates a profound sense of loneliness, because it means you're no longer operating within the same ethical or moral framework as most people. Your judgments, your priorities, and your understanding of what constitutes a good life might diverge significantly from the norm. You're effectively creating your own moral compass, which is a powerful act of freedom, yes, but also an act of profound separation. For Nietzsche, this reevaluation isn't a choice of arrogance, but an inevitable consequence of a mind that genuinely sees and refuses to settle for comforting inherited fictions. It's a path few are willing or able to tread, leaving the intellectually superior to walk it largely alone. This journey of reevaluating values, of constantly seeing through illusions and facing the resentment of the herd, it ultimately leads to what Nietzsche termed the free spirit. This isn't a state of blissful enlightenment, but rather a profoundly unique way of existing in the world. The free spirit is the individual who has liberated themselves from the intellectual and moral chains of the herd, precisely because their superior insight has shown them the constructed nature of those chains. For Nietzsche, becoming a free spirit is not a choice of arrogance, but an inevitable outcome for a mind that truly sees. It's not about desiring to be an outcast, but recognizing that profound insight naturally places you outside the common understanding. You haven't chosen isolation. Isolation has chosen you as a byproduct of your clarity. The free spirit understands that the pursuit of truth and a deeper understanding of reality often demands a kind of exile from common thought, common values, and common comforts. Consider the great philosophers, artists, and innovators throughout history. Many lived on the fringes of society, misunderstood and often scorned by their contemporaries. Their ideas, which later shaped entire civilizations, were initially too radical, too challenging, or too far ahead of their time to be embraced by the majority. They were free spirits, driven by an inner compulsion to create, to understand, to question, even if it meant profound personal loneliness. Their internal world was so rich, so complex, that it often found no easy correspondence in the external world. This understanding of the free spirit is vital because it reframes the isolation you might feel. It's not necessarily a personal failing or a sign that something is wrong with you. Instead, it might be an inherent consequence of your intellectual capacity, a natural outcome of your burden of sight. Nietzsche's brutal honesty forces us to confront this reality, that true intellectual freedom and depth often come with a heavy, isolating cost. It means embracing a kind of exile from what is comfortable, popular, or commonly accepted. The dark truth Nietzsche exposes, then, is that intellectual superiority, far from being purely a gift that guarantees admiration and connection, is often a lonely path. It's a path where clarity can lead to conflict, where depth can lead to distance, and where the relentless pursuit of truth can alienate you from those who prefer the comfort of illusion. So we've journeyed deep into the mind of Nietzsche, peeling back the layers of what it truly means to possess intellectual superiority. We began this journey acknowledging that quiet, often unspoken loneliness that comes with seeing things others don't. It's a feeling many of you might have carried, perhaps wondering if there was something wrong with you, or why your insights seem to build walls instead of bridges. What Nietzsche has shown us is that this isn't a personal flaw, it's a fundamental, almost inevitable consequence of a mind that genuinely sees. We uncovered how our innate will to truth, that deep hunger to know reality as it truly is, often clashes head-on with the more dominant will to comfort, or even will to illusion in others. Most people, Nietzsche argued, prefer the soothing stories, the simple answers, and the comfortable fictions that make life predictable and safe. Your sharp clarity, which seeks to expose the underlying truth, inadvertently threatens that comfort. We then saw how this dynamic plays out within the quote-quote mentality. Society thrives on shared values, common understandings, and a sense of belonging. An intellectually superior mind, by its very nature, is a profound form of individuality. It questions the foundations, dismantles the illusions, and naturally stands apart. This isn't just a difference of opinion, it's a challenge to the herd's very stability. And in response, we explored how resentment, that quiet, often unconscious bitterness, can lead to dismissal, misunderstanding, or even outright rejection of those who see too clearly. Think of Socrates, Galileo, or even just your own experiences where your insights were met with blank stares or defensiveness. They weren't just smarter, they were disruptors to comfortable ways of thinking. This leads us to what Nietzsche called the burden of sight, that profound solitude that often accompanies deep intellectual insight. If your internal world is built on seeing more layers, more patterns, and more implications than others, then the very fabric of your reality is, well, different from theirs. It means struggling to truly share your insights without watering them down, or finding that others simply lack the understanding to grasp what you're saying. This leads to a quiet self-editing, a holding back of your deepest thoughts, and a profound loneliness where you're rarely, if ever, truly seen or understood in your intellectual depth. You become isolated, not because you choose it, but because your mind inherently places you in a world others just can't fully inhabit. Nietzsche further showed us the inherent danger of the intellectual, the capacity, that is, to see through the, quote, comforting fictions that society often relies upon. While these fictions might be necessary for the majority to function, a mind that relentlessly pursues clarity naturally deconstructs them. This unmasking process, no matter how truthful, can be profoundly unsettling, and is often perceived as a direct threat to the established order and shared comfort. It's why truth-tellers are often silenced, not because they're wrong, but because their truth is, well, inconvenient. Finally, we explored the quote, re-evaluation of all values. This is how a superior mind isn't content to simply inherit values, but scrutinizes them, asking uncomfortable questions about their true benefit and origin. This radical questioning separates you from the common moral framework, leading to a profound sense of isolation as your judgments and priorities diverge from the norm. And from this lonely path emerges the free spirit, an individual liberated from intellectual and moral chains, not by choice or arrogance, but by the unavoidable clarity of their insight. This free spirit understands that the pursuit of truth often demands a kind of exile from common thought, common values, and common comforts. So if you've resonated with any part of this journey, if you felt that distinct weight of understanding, that subtle loneliness of seeing what others miss, know this: you are not alone. And there is nothing inherently wrong with you. Quite the opposite. What you have experienced, what Nietzsche so brutally exposed, is the price and the power of profound insight. Your intellectual superiority, that sharper mind you possess, isn't a personal failing. It's a testament to your courage to seek unfiltered reality, to your refusal to settle for comforting illusions. This gap you feel, this distance that sometimes grows between you and the crowd, is not a sign of brokenness, it is a sign of sight. It's the natural outcome when one mind insists on peeling back the layers of reality while others prefer the surface. And in understanding this, you gain a powerful perspective. You can move from feeling isolated and misunderstood to recognizing your unique position. You are not just smart. You are a free spirit in the making, capable of seeing truths that others cannot or will not confront. This journey with Nietzsche isn't meant to make you despair, but to empower you with understanding. It's about accepting the complex, often lonely path that intellectual depth can carve. It's about realizing that your clarity, while sometimes isolating, is also your greatest strength, the very engine that drives deeper understanding, profound questions, and ultimately progress, not just for you, but potentially for humanity. This deeper vision, this capacity to see beyond the ordinary, it truly does come with a heavy, isolating cost. But now, you understand why. You see the hidden forces at play, and in that understanding you find power, you find validation, and you find a newfound freedom in knowing that your path, though solitary at times, is a path of profound truth. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt this burden of sight? Have your insights created distance instead of connection? Share your own experiences, your moments of feeling like an outsider because of your clarity, in the comments below. Let's start a conversation, a community where these deeper understandings aren't just welcomed, they're celebrated. Your story is part of this larger truth, the one Nietzsche unveiled. And by sharing it, you validate not just yourself, but others who feel the same way. And if you want to continue peeling back the layers of human nature, if you're eager to explore more challenging ideas from history's greatest philosophical minds, and if you want to join a community of thinkers who aren't afraid to question, to see beyond the comfortable, then well, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't just watch. Become part of this journey of understanding. We're just getting started on exploring these powerful, often uncomfortable truths that shape our lives. Let's continue to dig deeper, together.